Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. We have two guests. Rick Moz, who wrote a book, The Medical Marijuana Guide, and has a business, Medical Marijuana Consultants, and has a product, Rick's Monster Grow Mix. Yeah, along with Joshua Brewer. Joshua won a landmark appeals case here in the state of Oregon this week. He managed to get a charge thrown out for, he'd been charged on the basis of wet medicine. We'll be talking to him more about that. We have a great and extensive hemp news segment for you tonight, along with Casper Leach is standing by to co-host the show with us, and John Cornett and Jan Sue are also standing by to bring us a little musical accompaniment. Hi, folks. We'll be back in just a moment after we bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
First story tonight is out of Olympia, Washington. Washington state elections officials on Friday approved a statewide measure for the November ballot this year that seeks to regulate the production and distribution of marijuana for adults. Sponsored by New Approach Washington, the measure, Initiative 502, will technically first go before the state lawmakers. If legislators fail to endorse the measure, then it will go directly before the voters this fall. New Approach Washington collected over 350,000 signatures from registered voters to qualify I-502 for this year's ballot. Backers of I-502 include two former U.S. attorneys, John McKay from the G.W. Bush administration and Kate Plummer, who held the job under President Clinton, as well as Seattle's former FBI agent in charge, Charles Mandigo. If enacted, the measure would remove state criminal and civil penalties regarding the possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana by adults aged 21 and over. It would not alter existing state prohibitions regarding the private cultivation of cannabis for non-medical patients. I-502 also seeks to enact statewide regulations allowing for the commercial production and sale of marijuana to adults in state licensed stores. The measure does not amend any existing regulations regarding the possession or cultivation of marijuana by qualified patients who are already permitted under Washington state law to grow up to 15 plants and possess up to 24 ounces of cannabis. If passed, I-502 would also impose new per se traffic safety standards for anyone over age 21 who operates a motor vehicle with detectable levels of active THC in their blood above 5 nanograms per milliliter. The presence of inactive THC metabolites in blood or urine would not qualify as a violation under the proposed law. The controversial provision would lower the legal standard necessary in Washington for a criminal DUI cannabis conviction from one that requires the state to show recency of marijuana use and a positive relationship between the use and behavioral impairment to one that merely requires prosecutors to prove that the defendant operated a motor vehicle with trace levels of THC in his or her blood. I-502 will not lower the probable cause requirement that must presently be met before the state can legally demand a suspect's blood. To date, a few states have enacted per se standards for THC because its presence at low levels in blood is also viewed by some experts to be an inconsistent predictor of behavioral impairment, particularly in more frequent consumers who may potentially test positive for residual THC levels in their blood for periods of time exceeding any period of acute impairment. The Washington State Democratic Party has endorsed 502, as has the King County Bar Association, among other groups. For more information about Initiative 502 in Washington State, visit New Approach Washington online at www.newapproachwa.org. That's www.newapproachwa.org. Out of Denver, Colorado marijuana activists have about 2 weeks to collect an extra 2,500 signatures to get a proposal legalizing possession of cannabis for recreational use on the ballot after Colorado's Secretary of State said Friday that tens of thousands of the signatures turned in were invalid. Organizers of Colorado's campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol said they plan to redouble efforts to get their measure before the voters in November. The marijuana activist group last month turned in to state officials about 160,000 signatures in favor of their proposal, almost twice as many as the 84,000 names required to get the measure on the ballot. But election officials rejected about 80,000 of those as invalid, said Colorado Secretary of State Scott Gessler, adding that the activists have 15 more days to get 2,500 more signatures and supporters to sign the petition. Signatures can be dismissed because they're not registered voters or because of improper addresses or illegibility. Our next story tonight is from Israel. Some 2/3 of Israeli cancer patients authorized to use cannabis report long-term symptomatic improvement from the plant, according to clinical data presented in January at a conference of Israeli oncologists and reported in several international media outlets. The investigators at the Shaba Medical Center in Tel Aviv, Israel, in conjunction with the Israeli Cancer Association, assessed the efficacy of cannabis therapy over the course of 1 year in 264 patients with cancer. The researchers reported, quote, some 61% of the respondents reported a significant improvement in their quality of life as a result of the medical marijuana, while 56% noted an improvement in their ability to manage pain. In general, 67% were in favor of the treatment, while 65% said they would recommend it to other patients, end quote. The study concluded that cannabis is, quote, an effective treatment for certain symptoms of the disease cancer, and recommended that, quote, the treatment should be offered to patients in earlier stages of cancer, end quote. In the trial, the most common types of cancer for which medical marijuana was prescribed was lung cancer, 21% of the respondents had that, breast cancer at 12%, and pancreatic cancer at 10%. The study focused primarily on the use of cannabis to relieve various symptoms of cancer or cancer treatment, such as pain and nausea, but did not evaluate whether marijuana therapy could potentially suppress the proliferation of the disease. In preclinical trials, various cannabinoids, including THC and CBD, or tetrahydrocannabinol and cannabidiol, have been shown to selectively target and eliminate malignant cells in cancerous tumors. To date, some 6,000 Israelis possess government authorization to use cannabis therapeutically. Patients authorized by the federal Israeli program may either cultivate cannabis at home or they may obtain marijuana from one of the nation's 12 licensed cannabis farms. Last summer, the Israeli Health Ministry formally acknowledged the therapeutic utility of cannabis and announced newly amended guidelines to more effectively govern the state-sponsored production and distribution of medical marijuana. The Israeli ministry estimates that as many as 40,000 patients will eventually have access to medicinal cannabis once the Israeli program is fully implemented. Our next story tonight is out of Sydney, Australia. It's unusual in that it regards a study of people in North America. An estimated 11% of North Americans between the ages of 15 and 64 consume marijuana yearly, according to a report published in the January 7th edition of the British scientific journal, The Lancet. Researchers from the University of Queensland and the University of Melbourne in Australia assess the global extent of the illicit drug use and its impact on health. The authors reported that an estimated 10.7% of North Americans consume cannabis annually. By contrast, fewer than 5% of the global population were estimated to have used cannabis in the previous year. Australians reported the highest level of cannabis use, according to the study. Regarding the impact of illicit drug use on health, the researchers wrote, quote, on the basis of available evidence, most of the disease burden attributable to illicit drugs is concentrated in problems are dependent drug users, especially people who inject drugs, end quote. The authors recognize, however, that only a minority of individuals who use illicit drugs become dependent on or inject them, and acknowledge the risks of cannabis use are much smaller than those of other illicit drugs. They concluded, quote, in high-income countries, the contribution of illicit drugs to the burden of disease is less than that of tobacco, but may be similar to alcohol, end quote. An editorial in the British medical publication The Lancet accompanying the study opined that criminal drug prohibition has failed to reduce illicit drug availability and has not contributed to the global health outcomes, stating, quote, over the past 50 years, international drug treaties have neither prevented the globalization of the illicit production and non-medical use of these drugs, nor outside of developed countries made these drugs adequately available for medical use. The systems also arguably worsen the human health and well-being of drug users by increasing the number of drug users imprisoned, discouraging effective countermeasures to the spread of HIV by injecting drug users, and creating an environment conducive to the violation of drug users' human rights. It concluded, national experimentation and approaches to prevention and reduction of drug-related harm should be allowed. The international drug treaties in their present form seriously constrain governments' capacities to engage in such policy experiments. Countries that wish to experiment with the different ways of regulating drug use and reducing drug-related harm will need to consider opting out of provisions of the existing drug control treaties. From the perspective of public health, we need to move toward a control system that is more aligned with the risks that different drugs pose to users and shows an understanding of the effects of different regulatory approaches on drug use and harm, end quote. Both papers are available online at thelancet.com. That is THELANCET.com. Our last story tonight is out of Naples, Italy. The administration of the non-psychotropic cannabis plant constituent cannabidiol, or CBD, is protective in an experimental model of colon cancer, according to preclinical trial data published online in the Journal of Molecular Medicine. Investigators at the University of Naples assessed the effect of CBD on colon carcinogenesis in mice. The researchers reported that CBD administration was associated with cancerous tumor reduction and reduced cell proliferation. The authors wrote, quote, although cannabidiol has been shown to kill glioma cells, to inhibit cancer cell invasion, and to reduce the growth of breast carcinoma and lung metastasis in rodents, its effect on colon carcinogenesis has not been evaluated to date. This is an important omission since colon cancer affects millions of individuals in Western countries. In the present study, we've shown that cannabidiol exerts protective effects in an experimental model of colon cancer and anti-proliferative actions in colorectal carcinoma cells, end quote. The authors also acknowledged that CBD possesses an extremely safe profile in humans. They concluded, quote, our findings suggest that cannabidiol might be worthy of clinical consideration in colon cancer prevention, end quote. Clinical review data published in the scientific journal Current Drug Safety this December concluded that CBD is non-toxic to healthy cells and is well tolerated in humans. Nevertheless, cannabidiol is presently classified under Schedule 1 under federal law, and such substances are required by law to possess a high potential for abuse and a lack of accepted safety under medical supervision, and no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States. Separate preclinical trials evaluating the anti-cancer activity of cannabinoids and endocannabinoids show that their administration can inhibit the proliferation of a variety of cancerous cell lines, including breast carcinoma, prostate carcinoma, gastric endocarcinoma, skin carcinoma, leukemia cells, neuroblastoma, lung carcinoma, uterus carcinoma, thyroid epithelioma, pancreatic carcinoma, cervical carcinoma, oral cancer, biliary tract cancer, and lymphoma. The full text of this study, Chemopreventative Effects of the Non-Psychotropic Phytocannabinoid Cannabidiol on Experimental Colon Cancer, appears in the Journal of Molecular Medicine this month. All right, it's a mouthful. We are at the end of our Hemp News segment. We're going to jump over to a little musical interlude with John Cornette and Jan Sue. Welcome, folks.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Howdy.
I once had a girl
or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian wood. She asked me to stay and she told me to sit anywhere. So I looked around and I noticed there wasn't a chair. I sat on the rug, biding my time, drinking her wine. We talked until 2, and then she said, it's time for bed. She told me she worked in the morning and started to laugh. I told her I didn't and crawled up to sleep in the bath. And when I awoke, I was alone, this bird had flown. So I lit the fire, isn't it good, Norwegian wood.
That's John Cornett and Jan Sue.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thanks. I'd like to introduce our guests and co-hosts. Hey, welcome, Rick. It's been a long time since we've had you live on the show.
Yeah, Paul.
We'll
How
talk
you guys doing, buddy?
very well. We got Casper in here. Hey, Casper.
Happy Friday.
And happy Friday to you and Joshua Brewer.
How you doing?
You, Rick, and you, Joshua, have just kind of had a breakthrough this week in the appeals court in your case,
Yeah.
right, Joshua?
Yes, we did.
You want to tell us what happened?
Well, it's about, let's see, it was 2009, September 27th, 1:30 in the morning. Had about 8 Medford cops, Medford police officers busted
At 1:30 in the morning.
1:30 in the morning.
That's an unusual time.
Busted in my house, and yeah, they pretty much came in on, they said unlawful weapon charges.
Uh-huh.
So let them search the house. They did everything they needed to do. Didn't find no evidence, no weapon being fired, nothing. Told them I wanted a GSR test, which is a gunshot residue test done on me and the gun. Denied me of that. Would not do it. So we go to court, and
So at the time they did this 1:30 in the morning raid on your house, they said you had been firing some weapons.
yes,
And they wouldn't allow any testing to prove that hadn't happened.
yeah, no
But they
gunshot.
found some marijuana at that time?
Yeah, yeah.
And so you
hard-
had some dried marijuana, some hanging marijuana, and some growing marijuana.
Yes,
And so
yes.
you were under your limits in dried marijuana,
yeah.
but you had hanging marijuana that was still wet.
Yeah, we had 3 cards. We only had 12 plants. You know, we stayed under the limit for that reason.
Uh-huh.
They say what they took was 5.5 pounds.
But that included the wet weight.
The wet, that included wet weight. That included thorn thistles, like cattails.
Uh-huh. Some other vegetation from the area.
Yeah, sticks, stems, I mean garbage.
So they threw a bunch of stuff in there to up the weight and weight
Right.
it while it was wet.
Right.
And then they prosecuted you based on that. And Rick, you came in and started helping
Yeah,
Josh on the case. You
Yeah.
Josh called me up immediately after that. He was,
And
he
you're a
was-
well-known fellow down in the Southern Oregon, Josephine, Jackson
Yes.
County area,
Yeah,
working with medical marijuana patients.
Yeah, I'm actually one of the only defense committees there really is. I put my extra money into defending these cases. And Josh came to me, and I told him just, you know, he was really upset. His family was at jeopardy. A lot of things were happening. I told him to come over to the house, so he brought Discovery over to the house. I read it. I said, it's a good case, Josh. If you just stand tall, we'll burn them up. And we truly did. We took them 3 years down the road. We finally got our reversal the other day, which
But at
sets a
first you
precedent.
got convicted of
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
being over your
Yeah,
amount of marijuana, and they sentenced you to 60
days.
or 70 days in jail?
60 days in jail. And
In
then,
Josephine County Jail?
Jackson County.
Jackson County.
And then 3 years of dispositional departure probation,
Uh-huh.
which is they'll give you a probation chance, But you mess that chance up one time, it could be, your PO could violate you for not paying your fines. And you're eligible at that point right there to go back in front of the judge and be sent upstate for your full prison sentence.
For a lengthy time in state prison.
Yes.
And so, Rick, you came in and helped file legal documents.
Yeah, what I did is I told Josh, you stand tall, you got a good case, and I'll put the first $2,000 up to get our attorney going on it. They actually convicted Josh. Like he said, he did some time. We got a hold of Jesse Barton, which is a good attorney, guys. Pay attention to him. He did a lot of work for us, and then what he did is he compiled a 15-page brief, and he called me up and he said, Rick, be critical with this brief because I don't understand the medical marijuana laws. And I said, okay. So I took it and turned it into a 55-page brief documenting things that they cannot do by the state laws. But one of them we documented was they can't touch this wet and drying medicine. It isn't usable at that point. So we set a precedence in that case, and I think all 55 pages are going to follow that precedent-setting case, and it covers a lot of things. So what we really want to do is let everybody know that if they got any friends that's been arrested, they got incarcerated, they did any time at all, and they had wet medicine, just like what happened with Brenda the other day. We're up here fighting today at the governor's office trying to get Brenda back home on a pardon clemency thing.
Based on this finding in Joshua's case.
They said she had 200 pounds. Well, she did. They carried a lot of wet medicine out of that place and a lot of hanging medicine, and they violated her constitutional rights.
Now, I could tell you that when you take medicine, it loses 20 parts, or 19 out of 20 parts. So you take 20 pounds, it's going to end up weighing 1 pound if you take freshly harvested cannabis. And so they charged her, and she was a caregiver for
14 people.
For 14 people. So really, if they had 200 pounds, it was probably more like 10 pounds, which is well under. She could have had about 20 pounds.
Yeah, I think she
under
was
the
allowed
medical
to have 36 or something like that.
Now we're talking about this lady, Brenda Thomas, who is a
pillar of the community.
Pillar of the
She's
Grants
an awesome
Pass
girl.
community, and helped manage our THCF medical clinic down in Grants Pass. And I know, Rick, you had recommended her right when we were first opening our office there.
Absolutely. Brenda's an outstanding human being, and we love her, and we're going to spend every day. We've been spending every night until Matt, my brother Matt over there, is sitting. He's been studying until 3 o'clock in the morning for the last almost 3 months. Putting together, and what we did is we put a team of investigators together. We got the U.S. Observer and those guys in on it, and we got some extensive investigation. We've found up a lot of stuff on these guys, and we're going after them. We're gonna set some precedents on these, and we want everybody to know one thing, that they're doing these compliance checks. They're not legal. They can say they can walk across. What we tell people, if they try to come on your property to check out your medical marijuana grow, tell them to go home and get a search warrant. Don't let them in.
I recommend that if the police come to your door and you have medical marijuana in your house and you're worried they might consider wet marijuana to be out of compliance, that you shouldn't even open your door to the police. That once you open your door, you've given up certain rights, and that then they can say they see something or they smell something, allow them to force their way into your home. So you want to talk to them through a closed front door, tell them they can't come in without a warrant. Of course, if they have a warrant, you want to let them come in and stand out of the way. In any case, be very polite in any regard, and certainly don't make any sudden moves. You know, we take viewers' phone calls on the show, and we've had one who's been standing by for several minutes. Let's see if we can bring that caller up. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening.
Howdy.
I haven't actually been watching the show live as you've been talking. I've been hearing, vicariously over the phone. So this is sort of pertinent to one of my questions, which is, have most of the raids been occurring in circumstances where people are operating as a business and selling? And
no, you weren't doing that, right, Joshua? You weren't. It had never sold cannabis.
No, I was just sitting in my house, minding my own business.
And with Brenda, our clinic manager, she definitely had never been involved in any selling cannabis. In fact, down in Southern Oregon back in, what was it, September or October, they raided dozens of growers and took their medicine.
They
and a bunch of patients.
big patches.
Yeah.
It seems to me like it's a routine for them every harvest season. They don't go in.
They're trying to pad their income by probably selling patients medicine.
They don't go
it's
in.
Probably the police who are
July
selling it.
or
It's probably the
August.
case.
They go in the end of September, October.
Yeah.
And then,
So,
Caller, you had another question?
yeah, I've got another question, and then one suggestion. the other question is, when the activist sheriffs, deny gun permits,
and they've been overruled. The Supreme Court has overruled that, so they can't deny gun permits anymore.
But how were they finding out that people were on the program?
They put a question in the concealed weapon permit saying, do you have a medical marijuana license? And if you did, the activist sheriffs in Washington County and Jackson County, I always get Jackson, Josephine County confused. In Jackson County, they pushed that case and they lost at the trial court, at the appeals court, and at the Oregon Supreme Court. Then they tried to appeal it to the United States Supreme Court, and that got thrown out of court about a month ago or so, right?
Yeah.
And then the suggestion is on the OMMP, why don't they just have an amendment whereby anyone over, say, the age of 50 would be automatically qualified, just based on, because anyone past that age is going to have some kind of medical condition that they can benefit, with medical cannabis.
Yeah, well, it increases longevity. I don't think that's a bad idea. I like that idea. However, getting the legislature to pass that would be very, very difficult. However, we have an initiative, as it says right here, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, that would completely legalize marijuana. People wouldn't even have to have a permit anymore. They recently increased the fee for medical marijuana from $100 a year for most people to $200 a year, with an extra $50 fee if you name someone else as your caregiver or grower, someone else as your grower. So it could be $250 a year if you name someone else as your grower. Now in Montana and Hawaii, the annual fee is just $25, and they're able to stay in their budget constraints. But even though at $100, it was already generating a huge surplus that was taken away and used for other health department programs. At $200, $250 a patient, it generates even larger surpluses. And so in response, the health department issued a notice this week saying they were going to close their intake window at the Oregon Health Building effective March 1st, so that they won't allow patients to come in and get registered for medical marijuana that day. They're going to have a box in the lobby starting March 1st that you can deposit your paperwork, but you don't get any sort of receipt back. But you can still send it in via certified and registered mail and get a receipt back that way. But they're increasing the cost, which is already generating a lot of money, using it for other programs, at the same time cutting the services. And I think increasing the costs on the sick and dying, the most vulnerable people in our society, is a cruel hoax. So our plan is just to end adult marijuana prohibition, allow any adult to grow their own. Right now, we have about 40,000 signatures on our petition to end cannabis prohibition. We need about we need 87,000 valid registered Oregon voter signatures by next July 6th. So we urge our viewers, anyone that can hear this, to tell their friends, come down to our office, get a petition, go to our website at cannabistaxact.org. That's cannabistaxact.org. And you can print out the single signature petition. You can make a contribution and help us put this thing on the ballot.
Well, if people send in payments, like with a check, for example, that's going to go through their bank. And
you mean to the health department?
Yeah, but then if they pay by check, if they're going to send in a payment, I guess the best thing to do would be get a money order or something like that.
Well, the check would give them a record of the payment. Registered or certified mail would give you a record that your medical marijuana papers have been delivered and received by the state of Oregon. As soon as they receive that application, the patient is technically covered immediately.
Right. Well, as soon as the doctor signs the paperwork, then you're covered for...
No, not until it's turned into the state. Once it's turned into the state, then they're covered. They're not covered until that's turned into the state, and that state fee has been paid.
Oh. Wow.
In Oregon. If you're a Washington patient, you're legal as soon as, and in California patient, you're legal as soon as the document's covered. But here in Oregon, that has to be turned into the state with that state payment of $200. Unless you're on food stamps, then it's $100. And if you're on SSI, it's $20. All right?
Thanks a lot. Have a good evening.
Thanks for your call. If you have a question or comment for us tonight, you can call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. Well, back to the story here. Now, Rick, you, in years past, sent us music videos that we used to frequently play about a dozen years ago that showed some of your large medical marijuana gardens with the big monster plants. And
Oh yeah, we've came a long ways too since that with the monster plant mix. We're in 32 countries with it now, and that's how I'm able to fund these attorneys to help these guys out that get violated. We're getting plants with stalks on the size of 1 gallon milk jugs, and some of them have been as far as 18 foot wide. So you don't have to grow but a couple of those puppies, and you're hitting a good mark. And it kind of keeps the eye off you, what you say of bigger figures. It seems to be working real good, you know. We are looking to put on some marches here and try to bring Brenda home. This is one of the most important things we've been doing this last 3 months, is we've been really putting a big focus on this because Brenda got her constitutional rights really violated. They used a fellow that had 4 pages of criminal history to testify against Brenda. Brenda's never had a traffic ticket in her life. It actually kills me inside that every day she's in there, and I won't let off. We got a whole team we brought up today to come at the governor's office to see if we could get a pardon, like we were saying, and we kind of got blew off there. But I think they're really going to look at it because with this new president, they're going to have to we're going to be bringing a lot of people home, and we want everybody's help to let any individual that got violated to get a hold of us, you know.
I really admire your work in helping patients there,
Thank you,
Rick,
Paul.
and
Means a lot
you
to
in
me.
setting that precedent. You finally got that thrown out. It's kind of
Yes,
too late since you've had your 60 days in jail, but now you'll be able to get your full medical marijuana permit back and start
Plus he's
growing.
got,
They never took it from me.
Oh, good,
Never
good,
did.
because
I've
it was still an
Had
appeal.
it the whole time.
yeah, and
Well, good.
Josh has got, you know,
So,
$15 million
yeah.
torts filed too. It's been well staged, this whole thing is.
I got about $15–20 million worth of torts filed. You know, you can't take somebody's medicine away from them. You can, I mean, probation or not, you cannot take somebody's medicine that their doctor gives them. That's, you know, somebody who's in charge of their health problems, and then you get a PO who's a cop, got a badge and a little tight shirt, and he thinks he's, you know, top flight security. He's going to tell you how to run your life. Your doctor's telling you to do one thing, PO's telling you to do another, and you're stuck in the middle. I even had permission from the judge.
Good.
Judge gave me permission to use my medical marijuana.
So that wasn't the same judge that railroaded Brenda, obviously.
No.
Yeah.
This was Judge White at Jackson County.
Ah, okay.
But he
so
gave
the
me-
fellow's in Josephine.
Yep, he gave me permission, use my medical marijuana while I served my 3-year probation sentence. And probation office said no. Said if you do it, you're getting violated and you're going upstate.
So Casper, you want to chime in here? Casper Leach is co-host and also produces the radio program Time for Hemp on the American Freedom Radio Network.
Monday through Friday. I tell you, I think it's amazing that you're still growing after going through all that, and you're still dedicated to moving forward with helping other people get their medications. So that's
Free. That's why we do it. We
that's nice that it didn't make you back
Yeah,
down
just like-
from that.
yeah,
Really,
just like I
that's
did.
quite a bit.
It's great giving it away for free. It's a whole new paradigm.
a
We have
lot-
another caller, though. Let's take another call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Is that me?
That's you.
Oh, right on. Long-time caller, Paul. I really appreciate your guys' work. And,
Thanks.
you know, I had a question, but I also have a comment first. Basically, what it comes down to is what these gentlemen were speaking about, you know, the doctors and whatnot. But basically what it comes down to, fellas, is these pharmaceutical companies want these patients and their money, and it's ridiculous. But anyways, on another note, what is the Oregon laws as to the handgun permit via the card? Is it attainable for both? And
Yeah,
I'll
you're
hang up and
attainable
let
for
you guys
both,
answer.
and it's been
Thank you.
adjudicated by all levels of Oregon courts, including an Oregon Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court refused to review it and upheld. The Oregon Supreme Court says that if you have a medical marijuana permit, they can't ask you, and they have to give you a concealed weapons permit or gun permit if you're asking for that. So we've won that right via litigation. What was the patient's name? Cynthia Willis?
Yeah.
Down there
In Gold Hill.
in Gold Hill, which is Jackson County.
Jackson County.
Got that one right.
And then,
So, yeah, it's protected.
Yeah.
is he still on the caller on?
Caller, you still there? No, we lost him.
Okay, yeah, like in Jackson County, what we did is we actually had a genuine sheriff in Joe County. That's Josephine County. Gil Gilbertson's actually going to grow hemp this next year, and he wants people to stand up for him and arrest the feds is what he'd like to do when they come in. This year here, the feds came into Joe County, and he told them they could just go ahead and leave because his patients were state law registered patients, and he didn't want them to be violated. But they went to Jackson County first, and Mr. Winters flew them around in an airplane and showed them where all these patients' medical constitutional rights violations you won't believe. It's gonna come forth because we got some attorneys that are working for us for free right now, and they want to see justice in this stuff and quit violating these patients. You know, they're not doing something wrong. We always look at it like no matter what they do, like alcohol or something like that, there's gonna be violators. There's gonna be people that's gonna do that, but they can leave these people that are sick and need this medication. I mean, they're doing good without Oxycontin and Vicodin. Their families are living good, and things are wonderful. We want them to back off because I quit growing. I'm going to pursue it so hard, it's going to be crazy. They've been violating too many people, and it just kills me. And I know state and federal law. So
we have a film clip we're going to roll, and we'll be back in just 3 or 4 minutes here, right after this clip.
I am glad that in this administration we have increased the amount of money for handling the problem of dangerous drugs sevenfold. It will be $600 million this year. More money will be needed in the future. I want to say, however, that despite our budget problems, to the extent money can help in meeting the problem of dangerous drugs, it will be available. This is one area where we cannot have budget cuts because we must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. We'll shoot your dogs in front of your kids, 'cause we are the SWAT. We're here for your pot and all the cash that you've got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the top. KGB and the DEA, they'll make you disappear like in Guantanamo Bay. In the middle of the night, you'll have nothing to say. If we get the wrong address, it doesn't matter anyway. We'll still get our kicks, we'll still have our fun. Yeah, we are the SWAT, we are adrenaline junkies till the drugs are all gone. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. It's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid. Don't be afraid.
Shoot my dog! Shoot the fucking dog! Oh my God!
This is a war, and this is your fate. We are the face of your new police state. We are the law, and we've got the guns. Statutory power, mandatory minimums. We are the SWAT, we're here for your pot and all the cash that you got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the czar. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. Flash bang on the ground, don't
So those were real videos where several folks were actually killed. Those are the police surveillance tapes. One of them as recently as last May, when they burst into a Iraqi war veteran asleep on his couch and shot him 48 times. The other one, you saw the man just open the door and get shot. And those are the kind of things that happen. As that video said, 700,000 times each year here in the United States alone. I'd like to welcome Mike Nitsky. Welcome, Mike.
Matt.
Excuse me, Matt. You've been working with Rick Moss and doing research with him on these violations in Southern Oregon and Josephine and Jackson County.
Yeah, we've been investigating a lot of cases that's been going on down there. Seems to be a lot of violations going on.
How many different cases are you looking at? Can you say?
I'd say at least 10 right now. And people knocking on our door. We're having a hard time almost keeping up with them.
At least they didn't open fire on you, Joshua.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh.
Actually, you know, it's funny because when they came in, the cops asked me if I had a gun in my house. I told them, yeah, you know, there's this .357. It's underneath that pillow right there. And the cop asked me if it's loaded. I told him, yeah, it's loaded. He says, go pick it up. And nope. You can go in there and get it. He says, oh, so you're giving me consent to go in your house? I said, go for it. And that's when he's seen 5 coat hangers. I had 5 coat hangers hanging from my ceiling with individual nugs on them. And yeah, that's when the probable cause and everything came along for them to start trashing the house and looking through the dressers.
Did you go through a trial for the conviction?
Yes.
And how long was that trial?
I was 3 days. 3 days, 8 o'clock in the morning to 4:30.
In
5
Medford?
o'clock, yeah. Circuit court. And you know, it was pretty good because the judge, Judge White, actually said in trial that most of these cases he sees, both parties agree to a plea bargain. He said my case was the first case that he actually had time to sit down and study the medical marijuana laws as a whole.
Yeah. And so often, if you take a plea bargain, you've completely given up your rights. You couldn't have won this appeal if you'd taken a plea bargain, and you've completely cleared your name now.
Right. No, they offered me, first deal they told me was 70 months in prison, 5 years, 10 months. It's a Measure 11 charge. And then it went from that to 36 months. And as we got closer to trial, 18 months. Like 2 days before trial, they offered me a misdemeanor. Plead guilty to a misdemeanor plea bargain, and they'll wipe away this possession and manufacture charge. Well, I didn't do nothing wrong. They wanted me to plead guilty to admitting shooting the gun. And I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to admit to something I didn't do. And so what I did is I told my lawyer, my public pretender, told him, you tell the DA I'll cut her a deal. She drops the case and leaves me alone. When it's said and done and over with, I won't sue the county. I won't sue Medford. No, I'll be done with it. I'll walk away.
You should have taken that deal. Now you're suing him for what, 70 million?
Yeah, I'm going to try to push close to 100.
All right. We have a caller. Let's go ahead and take that call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello, Paul. Everybody.
Welcome.
I've talked with you before, Paul, about different research articles and things like that, and how I'm doing with Kaiser, and I'm trying to work with them on trying to convince them that in conjunction, that the cannabinoid system, in conjunction with the opioid therapy, is appropriate. This is going to be a long, hard battle, as you know. And I'm just wondering if you know of any specific legitimate information as to that subject.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of studies that show that cannabis helps people greatly reduce their use of opioids and narcotics. And so there are just tons of studies out there.
And are you talking about, like, in
medical journals?
How do you get those studies? I mean,
do you have email?
This information for them.
Do you do the internet and have email?
Yep.
So drop us an email. You can email me at dpaulstanford. That's the letter D as in Doug. Paul, P-A-U-L, Stanford at gmail.com. Email me at dpaulstanford@gmail.com. And I'll send you links to lots of articles on just that topic.
You'll hear from me real soon about that. And you know, they're saying, like, how this isn't going to come about, and but you know, GW Pharmaceuticals.
Yes, producing a cannabis extract medicine.
They're pushing in their drug like really quick. Personally, I think that's fine. That the Salvinex, is that the name?
Mm-hmm.
The combination of different levels of natural CBD and THC, and perhaps other cannabinoids. In there. What do you think of that?
I think it's good. I mean, you know, some people worry about the medicalization of it. You know, I have no problem with it, especially in conjunction with full legalization for all adults for all purposes. I think if they can standardize the dose in those whole plant extract medicines, that's great. But we need to legalize cannabis for adult use in any situation outside of driving or working, in a relaxing situation, same place should be allowed to use alcohol. You should be allowed to use cannabis in all those same ways. And I also want to see hemp restored for fuel, for paper, for fabric, for building materials, and for food and body care products.
And for car parts.
Yeah, we want to see it completely legalized.
You know, like
and that's what our Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition would do. It will end adult marijuana prohibition and restore industrial hemp for all purposes. It would allow adults to grow their own without a license. If you wanted to grow it and sell it, you could get a license and sell it in businesses that get a license to sell it. And it could be like a winery or a brew pub where a business could get a license to grow it, process it, and sell it all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm glad you've explained that to the audience again. Everybody needs to know that. I worry, and that's something I worry about is when the pharmaceuticals come in, then the Fed's going to say, nope, it's still illegal.
Well, that's why we've got to completely legalize it for all purposes. And, you know, the majority of people are in our favor now. We're up to about 56%. Some of our polls showed that we can win with 62%. So we just have to put this thing on the ballot. So we urge you to come down to our office, to our volunteer meetings every Tuesday night, or go to our website at cannabistaxact.org. That's cannabistaxact.org. I'm sure that URL will pop up there on the screen in a minute.
Great. I have an appointment on the 13th, and so I'll be down there then, and you've gotten all my information, so, and I know yours, so great. Thanks, Paul, for that.
Thank you. I look forward to your email, and I can point out a lot of those medical studies.
Great.
Read a couple new ones on the air here this evening.
This evening?
Start of the show. Yeah, at the start of the show.
Great. I'll look at my Google alerts and see if there's anything.
It's on YouTube and Ustream.
Google Alerts gives me a lot of good information on research, by the way.
That's great.
Have a good day.
All right, thanks for calling. So we have a studio audience member who has a question. Let's go ahead and take that question from our studio audience member.
Well, Paul, there's thousands of people that will testimony as to how cannabis helps each and every one of their bodies. And from working with you over the years, I can tell you there's more than 100,000 just in this state that would stand up to state that. Mm-hmm. Also, you should go through the conditions because I know a lot of people are interested.
Well, there they are right on screen. Good timing. Chronic pain is the largest single condition for which patients can get medical marijuana. Then nausea related to a disease or a treatment like in chemotherapy, or gastrointestinal ailments like IBS and Crohn's disease and GERD, seizure disorders like epilepsy, other things that cause nausea, and the inability to eat or cachexia, cancer and HIV, all of those qualify for medical marijuana. If you or a loved one has one of those conditions and can't find a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit, then you should call our office at 503-235-4606. That number that popped up there on your screen, that's 503-235-4606. If you're watching outside of the Portland area, you can call us toll free at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And now we're going to go over to Casper.
And anybody who says that they don't have any of these symptoms that would allow them the opportunity to enjoy medical marijuana, if you want to enjoy it, you can watch the elections that are going on here in the United States and the debates, and after about 20 minutes you'll have gastro problems and chronic pain, and then you might want to go down and apply for your medical marijuana card.
So Matt, tell us some more about your studies here.
Well, I've been checking into Thomas's case to start off with.
And she was our clinic manager down in Grants Pass who was wrongfully charged with wet weight of cannabis. They harvested it fresh, and as in your case, they took ancillary vegetation. In your case, you had cattails and other wet vegetation that was added to the weight.
Thorn thistles, all kinds of random.
Wow.
And according to the precedents he just set, that's going to open so many doors. They're going to have to kick so much of Brenda's weight out that was questionable in the first place.
But those appeal court cases can take a long time to work their way through the court. You had already served your 60 days. Brenda was sentenced to 18 months, wasn't she?
Yep.
And now we think she'll be out in less than 6. She's already spent 2.5 months in Oregon State Prison, though.
Yes,
and she had never been convicted or charged with anything.
She's never been convicted of nothing. Then
even a traffic ticket.
And you have a gentleman like Thomas Blecko who's been charged with kidnapping, assault,
and that was
burglary.
their witness.
This was the state's witness that they put on, and what they should have done was they should have done everything they could to charge this man. This man is a menace to society.
State's informant.
They find him with 2 loaded guns. The state returns the guns to him. Then they say, oh, well, I didn't get them directly. They gave them to my son, which basically says, we gave them back to the man. And this man bragged about walking around Brenda's place every night with a 100-pound pit bull in one hand and a loaded gun in the other.
And
this is the man we want to release back into society. And that's serving our community. I have a real problem with what they have done here.
I really appreciate your research on that, Matt, and your work as well, Josh, in fighting this for so long and standing up. Not many people, obviously, it's the first time your judge has seen this in 12 years under medical marijuana. We have one more call. We'll take one more call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi.
Howdy.
Yeah, I was wondering if your guest there that got busted and served time and now is free is he still live in that area, and has he been getting any feelings of harassment, or has he been getting any surveillance on him? Or
so are you still living down in Jackson County?
I still live in Jackson County, but I moved out of Medford.
Moved out. So this was the Medford police.
Yeah, I live out in Rogue River now.
So he got out of the area where he could have been harassed, I see. Also, I was wondering, you're talking about legalizing marijuana. One of the things we got to be careful of is how our government legislates things. Like up in Washington now, they have the law to change some of that medical marijuana so people without the medical marijuana permit can use it.
Yeah.
But they're trying to add tests, for a DUI.
Yeah. Now, we didn't do that in our Oregon bill. Our Oregon bill just says that we don't overturn the current driving under the influence or DWI laws. So we didn't impose the limit on blood levels of THC.
Right, but we got to be careful because the government has a tendency to do things on their own. Like last year, they passed a bill with anybody that gets any pain medication, the pharmacist has to report them to the state now, and you're put into a database just because you're getting pain medication.
Yeah.
You probably know that. But
yeah.
Yeah. So
we're running out of time.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate your phone call, though. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Have a good night. Matt, is there anything you'd like to say in closing here?
Well, a lot of these cases seem to be coming down of growers bringing in people from out of state using cards. Using people without medical cards to trim, and these people are getting caught, and they're rolling up on the people who they've trimmed for. And yeah, we've got a serious problem going on down there with.
Well, I am a firm believer that when we completely legalize it, as our Cannabis Tax Act initiative will do, that will solve that problem.
Yes.
Matt, you want to say anything in closing?
Not
not Matt, Joshua. You're Matt. You're Joshua. Sorry about that.
I'm not done yet. I'm going to keep going, and there's a couple more precedents that my case should have set. And
so you were covered by the Associated Press, so that went out to newspapers across
Yeah.
the country.
Yeah.
How you got this, won this appeals case.
Yep. But no.
But now you're suing them for monetary damages.
Yep. But the appeals court should have recognized like 2 or 3 more precedents that should have been set, and they just pretty much, you know, shook them off and went, okay, well, this is what we're going to do.
I really appreciate
We'll
you doing
set
that,
these
Josh.
ones.
We're down to less than 2 minutes left. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Casper, you want to say anything?
Yes, Time for Hemp, Monday through Friday, AmericaFreedomRadio.com from 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. Tell your friends, tune in and take Time for Hemp. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. And you can go to our portal for all our websites at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. And please help us restore hemp. Here's John Cornette and Jan Sue with about a minute and a half to go. Thanks, folks.
All right.
And I've been seeing this all over my shelf. No, they could never love me, can't even love themselves. And I need someone to love me, someone who really understands.